Prior to your testimony today, did you and I meet before?
Yes,
How many times did we meet?
about 2 or 3.
And what did we discuss?
Just about the case, and I would have to come testify.
And I want to direct your attention to May 14th of 2022. How old were you back then?
I was 18 years old.
And were you in school at that point?
Nope, I just graduated.
Did you graduate the year before in 21?
Yes, the year before.
And I want to direct your attention to later on that night. Okay. Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you were doing early? I would rephrase it as earlier that night.
So earlier that night, I was at my brother's house, and he was having a little bit of a get-together. And then I received a call to give Ryan and Griffin a ride to another party.
So what time would you say you were at your brother's house?
I do not recall exactly what time, but earlier in the night.
And when you were at your brother's house, were you drinking any alcohol at that point?
Not prior.
Okay. And at some point, you say you left to go give Ryan and Griffin a ride?
Yes.
And where did you give them a ride?
I gave them a ride to Lazy Brook, which I found out later was the Lifeless house.
So Lazy Brook Road?
Yes.
And when you gave them a ride to Lazy Brook Road, where did you go pick them up first?
From Natalia Ritzik's house.
Natalia Ridzik. And you brought them from Natalia Ridzik's house to Lazy Brook.
Yes.
And when you got to Lazy Brook, what time of night would you say it was?
A little later in the night, to relatively around 10-ish o'clock.
Okay. And when you got to Lazy Brook, do you recall whether or not Griffin and or Ryan had anything with them at that moment?
I do not. I didn't really examine them upon them getting in my car.
Okay. And when at some point in time you got to Lazy Brook, and did they get out of the car?
Yes.
And did you park the car and get out as well?
No.
What did you do?
Once they got out of the car and shut the doors, I went back to my brother's house.
And when you got back to your brother's house, what were you doing when you got back to your brother's house?
Once I got back to my brother's house, I had a couple drinks.
And what kind of drinks were you having?
I do not recall exactly, but seltzers.
How long would you say you were at your brother's house for?
I do not recall exactly.
Did there come a time when you were at your brother's house where you were made aware of an incident that happened at Lazy Brook concerning Griffin and Ryan?
Yes.
And when you found that out, what, if anything, did you do with regards to withdrawing? Did you try to communicate or call Griffin or Ryan?
So I answered Ryan's call, which he informed me of an incident that happened.
Your Honor, hearsay.
Without telling us what he said.
Hold on a minute. Let me just deal with the objection. Okay, I'm just going to stop you. So I'll sustain the objection to the extent it was hearsay. I will go ahead and everything from after, yes, I received a call to what Ryan said will be stricken from the evidence. I'm instructing the jury to disregard it. You'll get a final instruction at the end of this case during your jury charge to further explain stricken evidence and how that applies to your deliberations. Okay, so I'll allow you to continue.
Thank you.
Yes.
May the witness just be reminded to keep his voice up. It's hard to hear here.
Yes, certainly. Okay. So I am going to ask you, the microphone does
Yeah,
not
mic.
such a great job in terms of amplifying, but if you can speak into it and just remember to try to keep your voice up and also direct your answers to the jury. Thank you so much.
So at some point in time when you're at your brother's house, you received a phone call from Ryan Hines. And based on your discussion, you were made aware of an incident that happened in Lazy.
Yes.
And when that happened, what, if anything, did you do?
I then was concerned, made sure he was okay, but I was informed that he.
Without telling us what was said.
Can you rephrase something?
So when you had this conversation with Ryan, did you at some point leave your brother's house?
Yes.
Okay. And did you drive from your brother's house?
No, I did not.
Why didn't you drive from your brother's house?
Because I started drinking, so I asked a friend for a ride.
And who did you ask for a ride?
Alex Bernstein.
Alex Bernstein? How do you know Alex Bernstein?
We met through mutual friends, but we have grew close over the years.
And when Alex Bernstein picked you up, where did he take you?
To Tyler Rich's house.
And first, I'm going to show you States 5. Already been made a full exhibit. You recognize States 5?
Yes,
What is States 5?
that's Tyler Rich's house.
Is this the house that Alex Bernstein brought you to on May 14th of 2022?
Yes,
Did you go there after you had the conversation with Ryan Hines on the phone?
yes.
Why did you go there?
He informed me that's where he was going.
Without what he said, were you going there to meet anybody?
I was going there to meet Ryan Hines.
Okay, so you had information that Ryan was going to be at 43 Laurel Glen, and you went there to meet him.
Yes,
Why would you go there to meet him? Did you have any concern?
I was concerned for him, so I went there to check on him.
Now, when you got there, how many people would you say were at 43 Laurel Glen at that point?
I do not recall exactly because I did not go inside.
Now, are you familiar with,
Certain.
show your state's exhibit 54. You recognize state's 54?
Yes.
Who is that person?
It's Faison.
Faison Teal?
Yes.
How do you know Faison Teal?
We grew up together going to the Boys and Girls Club.
Do you recall whether or not Faison Teal was at Tyler Rich's house on May 14th of 2022?
Yes.
Showing you state's exhibit 55. Do you recognize 55?
Yes.
And who is that in the picture?
It's Thomas Connery.
All right. Tommy Connery?
Yep.
How do you know Tommy Connery?
We grew up together as well. We were on the same sports teams in the same grade growing up.
Do you know whether or not Tommy Connery was at Tyler Rich's house on May 14th, 2022?
Yes, he was.
Showing you state's 56. You recognize 56?
Yes.
And who is this in the picture of 56?
Ryan Hines.
And you just indicated Ryan Hines was at Tyler Rich's house?
Yes.
You went there.
Yes.
Finally, state's 57. You recognize state's 57.
Yes.
And who is that a picture of?
It's Jimmy McGrath.
And how do you know Jimmy McGrath?
We have a lot of mutual friends.
And was he present at Tyler Rich's house that night?
Yes.
Now, you say when you got to Tyler Rich's house at that point in time, what time do you think he got there, if you could recall?
I do not recall exactly. It was starting to get a little later in the night.
Now, I'm going to ask you, are you familiar with an individual by the name of Enrico Fiola?
Yes.
Does he also go by a different name?
He goes by Ricky.
Goes by Ricky. How do you know Ricky Fiola?
We are good friends.
And do you know whether or not he was present at Tyler Rich's house that night?
He was.
And are you familiar with Sal Perry?
Yes.
How are you familiar with Sal Perry?
We're friends as well.
And do you know whether or not Mr. Perry was at Tyler Rich's house that night?
Yes, he was.
And how about Mike Sampieri?
Yep.
How do you know Mike Sampieri?
We are friends.
And was he present at Tyler Rich's house that night?
Yes, he was.
And Alex Bernstein was with you?
Yes.
And how about Charlie Connery? Do you know Charlie Connery?
Yes.
How do you know Charlie?
I grew up with his brother Tommy playing sports, so I was always around him growing up.
Do you know whether or not Charlie was at Tyler Rich's house that
Yes,
night?
he was.
How about Jacob Villalobos?
Yes.
How do you know Jacob Villalobos?
He was on the same football team as me growing up.
And do you know whether or not Jake Villalobos was at Tyler Rich's house that night?
Yes, he was.
And how do you know Tyler Rich?
We're in the same friend group.
And how about Matt Lockovich? You know Matt Lockovich?
Yes.
How do you know him?
We are also in the same friend group.
And was Matt Lockovich at Tyler Rich's house that night?
Yes, he was.
Now, when you got to 43 Laurel Glen, tell us how long you were there for, just about.
I would say around 20 minutes.
And when you say you were there for 20 minutes, when you were there, what were you doing?
I was outside talking to Ryan.
Show you States 50. Can you indicate where on States 50? Let me ask, you recognize States 50?
Yes,
What is States 50?
that's Tyler Rich's house.
And when you got to Tyler Rich's house, do you know whether or not this is a more recent picture, right?
Yes.
Do you know where you were when you first got to Tyler Rich's house? If you could point us out in this picture.
I was on the right side towards where the picture cuts off.
Okay, so maybe near this red bush here?
Relatively right by the red bush.
Okay, so in the record reflect, I'm pointing to the red bush to the right side of this exhibit, Your Honor.
All right, so Cordell, note for the record, you're pointing to the red bush to the furthest right of the photo. Thank you.
And when you got there that night, what time was it about?
I do not recall exactly, but it was later in the night.
And what was the lighting conditions out when you got there?
It was relatively dark, but not pitch black outside.
Were you able to recognize people that you knew there?
Yes.
Could you see in front of you?
Yes.
Was there any light from the house being admitted in the front yard in any way?
I do not recall.
Okay. And when you got there, who did you meet when you got to Tyler Rich's house?
I met Ryan Hines along with Tyler Rich was outside. And Griffin Marcinzik was also outside.
And did you have a conversation with them?
Yes,
Okay. And at some point, did you ever go inside the house?
I did.
You did.
Yes.
And how would you enter the house when you went inside?
Through these cellar doors in the backyard.
And where are the cellar doors located? Can you kind of point us out for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
They are in the shadow that is made by the house, but they're not very visible in this picture.
Okay. Sure. All right. I'm showing you States Exhibit 5. Can you see on States 5 where you would have entered the side of the house?
Yes, right to the side of the metal object that's sticking out above the ground.
So right here?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the record reflect, Your Honor? There's a clearing. Looks like there's trees, but there's a clearing in front of the blue truck where there appears to be a AC unit. And that's what I'm pointing. Is that
All right.
where-
Yes.
Court will allow the record to reflect that that's the area that's been indicated. Thank you.
And what is located over here?
To the right of the AC unit, there is cellar doors on the floor.
And you would go inside the cellar doors?
Yes.
And when you went inside the cellar doors, what kinds of things were going on inside the house?
I went right down the stairs, but I did not make it fully into the house.
Did you observe what was going on?
No, I did not.
Was anybody drinking at the party?
Not to my knowledge, because I did not make it inside the house.
Were you drinking when you got to Tyler Rich's house?
No.
So the only alcohol that you had up until this point was the couple of seltzers that you had at your brother's house?
Yes.
You know, at some point in time, you were standing in the cellar door stairway area,
Yes.
and at some point in time, did you leave that area to go back outside?
Yes, I did.
And why did you do that?
I was standing at the cellar doors, and then I heard yelling that they were back. And that's when I made my way back to the front.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
I was standing at the cellar doors, and then I heard yelling that they were back. And that's when I made my way to the front.
Now, did at some point in time a car arrive at Tyler Rich's?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know what kind of car it was?
A dark colored Honda Pilot.
Okay. And when the Honda Pilot arrived at Tyler Rich's house, did you walk out and see who it was?
Yes.
Okay. Who was with you when you did that?
I do not recall exactly, but Griffin Marcinzik, Ryan Hines, and Tyler Rich were next to me.
And can you tell us on this exhibit here, State's Exhibit 50, when the car arrived at the house, did it park?
It was stopped in the middle of the street.
In the middle of the street where? Towards can you tell us on this exhibit 50?
Yeah, relatively right in front of the mailbox in the middle of the road.
Okay. And when you encountered the pilot, how many people were outside the house at this point in time?
I do not recall exactly.
And was there a number of kids? Kids, your friends?
Yes.
And did you all approach the car?
Yes.
And what, if anything, can you tell us happened when you guys approached the car?
We approached the car, and there was a little bit of arguing with us outside of the car and individuals inside of the car.
Did you notice anybody in the car that was familiar to you?
Not at the time.
Could you tell us how many people you saw in the car?
About 4 or 5.
Okay. And at some point in time during this arguing back and forth, what, if anything, happened during that interaction?
There was arguing back and forth, and then it was what appeared to be a glass bottle thrown out of the car.
And what side of the car was it thrown?
Towards the house, so the driver's side.
So I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 30. Is this the car that you saw that night?
Yes.
And when the car arrived on Laurel Glen, was it facing towards Farmhouse or towards Adams?
When it arrived, it was facing towards Farmhouse.
And you said somebody threw a bottle out of the car?
Yes.
Okay. And was it a glass bottle or was it a plastic bottle?
It was a glass bottle.
And when the bottle was thrown, did that come from the driver's side, the rear passenger side, or from the opposite side of the vehicle?
It
If you
was
can
the
recall.
driver's side.
And when the bottle was thrown, what, if anything, happened next between the individuals in the car and your friends?
There was arguing, and they sped off.
At some point in time, do you recall whether or not anybody else threw things from the car or anybody from your friends threw things out the car?
I do not recall.
When the car sped off, what did you do next?
I was walking back towards the cellar doors in the backyard because Tyler said for everybody to get back inside.
Okay. And when you went back towards the cellar doors, did you hang out for a little bit?
Yes.
And when you were hanging out, were you drinking any alcohol?
No.
And at some point in time, did you exit the house again?
Yes.
Why did you exit the house?
I heard yelling that they were back.
And when you heard yelling that they were back, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how you exited the house and what you did.
I exited through the cellar doors in the back, and I went through the clearing in between the house and the tree line. And once I made my way to the front yard, there was lights on. So I started a Snapchat video, and there was already a fight started.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 52. So once you came out of the Bilko doors, can you show the ladies and gentlemen on 52 where you walked to when you heard that they were back?
Stand up. I walked through a clearing through here and towards the front with my back against the driveway.
So you were in this area here, this grassy area here?
Yes.
And when you made your way over, withdrawn, when you were making your way over, had a fight had already started or was there just arguing?
There was already a fight started.
Okay, and when the fight started, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you observed.
I observed a chaotic scene and a fight in the middle of the grass, and there was flashlights around. Therefore, I started a video.
Now, the fight that you observed, can you show on State's 52 where the fight was occurring?
Yes. It was right in the middle of the grass out here.
And when you walk down to the area between the square cement thing there and we'll say between the mailbox and that's the area you were in. And so, go ahead.
I was right about by the concrete slab right here.
And at some point in time, the fight had already started and you indicated that you did what?
I then started a Snapchat video.
And can you explain what a Snapchat video is?
Yes. A Snapchat video is a social media app. And to start a video or take a picture, there's a little white circle at the bottom of your screen. So to take a video, you just hold down on the white button. And if your finger slips off that button, then the video will stop. Or to zoom in and out, you could go up and down. Anything you do to touch your screen will affect the video on the app.
Is it possible? Now, how do you save that video?
There is a button in the bottom left corner to save a video.
And when you observed the fight going on in this case, did you video it from the beginning of the fight?
I videoed it from when I walked out of the cellar doors in the backyard and the fight already previously started.
And when you videoed it, is the light on your phone on when you're videoing it?
I do not recall exactly.
Approach the witness. Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 60 for identification. You recognize State 60?
Yes,
And what is State 60?
that's the Snapchat video that I took.
And prior to today's testimony, did you have an opportunity to view this video that you took?
Yes,
And how do you know that this is the same video that you took?
it is the same exact Snapchat video I took.
And the initials here, whose initials are those?
And I also put my initials on the paper that the USB is in.
And with regards to the video, does this USB contain the original video you took on May 14th of 2022?
Yes, it does.
And does it contain any other videos in connection to this case?
Yes, it does.
Does it also contain a video that is a lightened up version of the video you took?
Yes,
And outside of it being lightened up, did you have an opportunity to review that video?
yes,
And is that video changed in any way from the original video outside of being lightened up?
no, it is not.
And does this USB also contain a video that is slowed down with some frame numbers?
Yes,
And outside of it being slowed down and lightened up with frame numbers on it, is that video changed in any way from your original video outside of those things?
no, it is not.
Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 61 for identification purposes, you recognize State 61.
Yes,
And what is State 61?
it is a screenshot from the Snapchat video that I took.
And does this accurately reflect a screen grab from a frame number or a frame in time from that original video?
Yes,
Showing you State's Exhibit 62. Do you recognize State 62?
yes,
And what is State 62?
it is a screenshot also from the Snapchat video that I took.
And does this screenshot differ in any way from what you observed in your video?
No,
Showing you State's Exhibit 63. Do you recognize State 63?
yes,
And what is State 63?
a screenshot from the Snapchat video.
And again, is this different in any way from the video that you took?
No,
Showing you State 64. Do you recognize State 64?
yes,
And what is State 64?
a screenshot from the Snapchat video.
Is this different in any way from the video you took?
No,
Showing you State 65. Recognize State 65.
yes,
What is State 65?
it's also a screenshot of the Snapchat video.
And is this different in any way from what you reviewed from the video you took on May 14th of 2023?
No,
State 66. Do you recognize State 66?
yes,
And what is State 66?
a screenshot from my Snapchat video.
And is this different in any way from the video that you took on May 14th of 2022?
No,
State 67. You recognize 67?
yes,
And what is State 67?
a screenshot from my Snapchat video.
And is this different in any way? Does this accurately reflect a moment in time from that video that you took on May 14th of 2022?
Nope.
Does it
No.
reflect it?
Oh, yes,
And State 68, recognize State 68.
yes,
And what is State 68?
a screenshot from my Snapchat video.
And again, does this accurately depict a screen grab from that video?
Yes,
And finally, 69, you recognize 69.
yes,
And what is State 69?
it's also a screenshot from my Snapchat video.
And does this accurately reflect that moment in time from that video?
Yes,
Without objection, I would offer these as full exhibits.
Attorney Smith?
If I may just quickly look at those.
Certainly, of
screenshots.
course.
I don't anticipate it.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, with no objection, court will accept into evidence States 60 through 69 as full.
Now, when you came out to view the fight that had already started and started videoing, what do you recall seeing when the fight was going on?
once I walked outside, it was a very chaotic scene in the middle of the yard.
And do you recall seeing anybody who was not your friends at the fight?
Yes.
What do you recall seeing?
I recall seeing two individuals from the car previously.
And do you recall what they were wearing?
One of them had on a light blue, it appeared to be a jersey.
Okay. And do you recall what the other person was
I do not.
wearing? Prior to that night, had you seen those individuals before?
No, I had not.
And were you asked to identify any of those individuals by the police department?
Yes, I was.
And were you able to identify any?
I was after reviewing my video.
And who were you able to identify?
Both individuals.
Who are they? You know who they are?
It was Tyler De Silva and Raul Valle.
And is Raul Valle present in court today?
Yes.
And what is he wearing?
He's wearing a black and white suit and tie.
Can you please point him out for the jury? May the record reflect the witness identified the defendant in this case?
So the court is going to note for the record that the witness identified the defendant.
Tanner, before we took the break, I was just about to ask you about the fight itself. What did you remember observing about the fight when you were recording it?
It was very chaotic, but there was a little skirmish in the midst of everything. It was really in the center of everything.
And based on you recording and what you recall about the fight, can you tell us, based on your recollection, taking us through the fight, what you remember?
I do not remember too much because once I came out from the back of the house and I went towards the front, there was already a big crowd and the fight was in the middle of the crowd and I just started recording. It was all really a blur.
And when you were recording, do you recall hearing anything going on during the fight?
Yes, I recall hearing screams to get out of here and just leave.
Do you recall whether or not Charlie Connery said anything?
Yes,
What do you
he
recall?
yelled, "He has a knife, he has a knife."
And when you heard him yell, "He's got a knife, he's got a knife," what, if anything, did you do next?
I do not recall exactly. He said it a few times, therefore it kind of registered in my head.
And when it registered in your head, were you still recording the video?
That is right when the video stopped.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 60. We're going to play the original video.
Yes, sir! Come on, let's go, Lynn! Yes, sir!
I'm going to show you some stills from that. So I'm showing you State's Exhibit 61. This individual right here to the left with what appears to be pink shorts and white shirt. Do you know who that is with the phone in his hand?
Yes, that's Ricky Fiola.
Rico Fiola, Ricky?
Yes.
State 62. Do you know who this individual is?
Yes, that is one of the individuals that was originally in the car and in the fight.
And do you know who that individual is?
Yes, that's Raul Valle.
Defendant?
Yes.
State 63. This individual here with the green shirt and black shorts with white trim. Do you know who that is?
Yes, that's Ryan Hines.
And this individual here with the white shirt and black shorts in front of Ryan Hines, who is that?
That is Sal Perry.
And this individual with their shirt off with the jeans on, do you know who that is?
Yes, that's Alex Bernstein.
And this individual here with the black shirt, jeans on, and the red hat, do you know who that is?
Yes, that is Michael Sampieri.
And this individual on their knees with their shirt pulled up, do you know who that is?
Yes, that is one of the individuals that was originally in the car.
And do you know the name of that individual?
Yes, Tyler De Silva.
And do you know if there's anybody in front of him on the ground?
I learned after the fact that it was Tyler Rich.
Showing you State 64, direct your attention to this individual here in the white shirt. Do you know who this is on the right side of 64?
Yes, Charlie Connery.
And again, 65, is that the same individual?
Yes, it is.
State 66, do you know who this individual is with the white shirt, appears to be tan shorts on?
Yes, that's Jacob Villalobos.
And this person here with the camouflage shorts with no shirt on, with the shirt hanging out the back. Do you know who that is?
Yes, Matthew Lokovich.
And this individual here with the navy blue shirt and white shorts, do you know who that is?
Yes, Jimmy McGrath.
State 67. Again, this individual with the white shirt hanging out the back of his pants with the camouflage, that's,
Matthew Lokovich.
and this individual here with the tan shorts with the white shirt appears to be pushing on Tyler De Silva. Do you know who that is?
Yes, Jacob Villalobos.
And again, this person here on the right side of the photograph with the navy blue shirt on and the white shorts, who would that be?
Jimmy McGrath.
State 68. The individual here with the shirt pulled up, with the jeans on, can you tell us who that is?
Tyler De Silva.
And is this frame after Jacob Villalobos seen pushing him out into the street?
Yes, sir.
And the person passing him near the curb, who would that be?
That is the defendant.
And finally, state 69, do you know who this individual is in the street with the jeans on and the jersey?
Yes, Tyler De Silva.
And this individual here with the navy blue shirt on and the white shorts, do you know who that is?
Jimmy McGrath.
Now, when you stopped filming, withdrawn. After the fight ended, what did you observe?
After the fight ended, I observed a chaotic scene where Jimmy was laying on the ground and the dark colored Honda Pilot sped away.
What about Jimmy did you observe when you saw him on the ground?
He was just laying in the grass with a bunch of people around him.
And did you recall whether or not he had his shirt on at that moment?
I do not recall.
And did you notice anything else about any of your other friends after the fight was over?
At that moment, I did not.
What happened after the fight ended? What did you do next?
When Jimmy was laying on the ground, he appeared to have wounds and everyone was yelling to go get towels. So then I made my way back through the opening in the backyard and down the cellar doors to go look for towels to assist.
And when you went to go look for towels, what, if anything, did you encounter in the basement?
In the basement, I encountered Ryan Hines slouched up against the wall with his arm across him, seeming to be heavy breathing.
And did you assist Ryan Hines?
Yes, I asked why he was down there, and he was just out of breath. And then I lifted his arm up and saw a wound on his rib cage.
And what side of his do you recall what side?
I do not recall exactly.
And when you witnessed the wound that Ryan Hines had, what if anything, did you do with regards to Ryan?
I told him that he had to go outside to an ambulance right away, and I proceeded to get his mom's phone number.
And did you call his mother?
Yes.
And after you called his mother, did you help him outside or did you help him outside first and then call his mother?
I helped him to the ambulance, and then I called his mother immediately after.
And after that happened, do you recall whether or not you spoke to police officers?
Yes.
Where did you speak to the police officers?
In the driveway.
And at some point in time, did you speak to police officers again after that night?
Yes, the following day.
And when you spoke to police officers, did you provide the police officers with the video that we just saw?
Yes, I did.
And on May 14th of 2022, when you were coming out of the Bilko door and you were encountering the fight, did you have any weapons on you?
No, I did not.
Do you recall prior to the fight whether or not any of your friends had any weapons on them?
No, they did not.
And do you recall witnessing anybody during the fight from your friends with any weapons on them?
No, I did not.
Did you witness anybody else with any weapons on them that night?
No.
Did you see anybody actually get stabbed?
No, I did not.
To the best of your recollection, what you told us here today is what you remember?
Yes.
You said you had a couple beers at your brother's house and that was it?
Yes.
Were you intoxicated to the point where you couldn't recall everything that you just testified to today?
No, I was not.
If I may have a moment, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this point.
Attorney,
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Chernowsky. You and I have never met before, correct?
No, sir.
We've never discussed this case before.
No, sir.
You did, however, meet with the police and discuss this case, correct?
Yes.
And sir, it's your testimony that when you met with them on May 15th, you provided them with this video?
I do not recall if it was on the 15th, but to the best of my knowledge, yes.
Because you actually also met with them again on the 20th, did you not?
Yes.
Do you think maybe you provided it to them on the 20th and not on the 15th?
Yes, it may have been on the 20th.
You described for us your relationship with some of these folks, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that, okay?
Yes, sir.
You described knowing Ryan Hines, and you knew Ryan Hines from school, correct?
I met him through mutual friends. Yeah, through mutual friends. And we live in the same neighborhood.
And you lived in the same neighborhood?
Yes.
And how would you describe the nature of that relationship? Was he your best friend, acquaintance,
He was a really good friend of mine.
a really good friend?
Yes.
Good enough that you would give him rides to and from parties, even if you weren't necessarily going there. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And you didn't really describe for us your relationship with Griffin Marcins, but how do you know Griffin?
Our families have been family friends since we were very young, so we consider each other cousins, but not by blood.
So close enough that you consider each other cousins, even though you're not actually blood related.
Yes, sir.
Do you have that same closeness in your relationship with Ryan Hines?
Not to the extent.
So you were closer with Griffin Marcinzik than you were necessarily with Ryan Hines. Is that fair
Yes,
to say?
sir.
And you described that you received a call to give a ride to Ryan and Griffin over to 5 Lazy Brook, correct?
Yes, sir.
At that point, you were at your brother's house.
Yes.
And just for the record, what's your brother's name?
Colin?
Colin?
Yes.
And how old is Colin
24, I believe.
now?
Yes.
So 21 at the time?
Yes, he was 21 or 22. It was his stepbrother's house, but he was residing there.
Okay. His stepbrother is not your stepbrother?
No.
Okay. Are you and Colin half brothers?
Yes.
And so you did give them a ride over to 5 Lazy Brook, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you just dropped them there.
Yes, sir.
So you didn't witness anything that occurred at 5 Lazy Brook.
No, sir.
Later, however, you got another call from Ryan Hines again, correct?
Yes, sir.
And at that point, you got Alex Burnson involved, correct?
Yes, sir.
You weren't hanging out with Alex before that call, were you?
No, sir.
So after that call, you contacted Alex Burnson, correct?
Yes, sir.
You recruited him to come and give you a ride over to 43 Laurel Glen, correct?
Yes, sir.
How did you know to go to 43 Laurel Glen?
Actually, sorry. Ryan informed me that that was where he was going to be going.
And he wanted you to come there and meet up with him.
I was more being a concerned friend, so I was going to go check on him no matter where he was.
And were you going to take Alex Burnson with you no matter what?
Alex was my first call because I had a few drinks and he does not drink. So I knew that in a serious situation that if I needed him to pick me up, he would.
So if there was going to be a serious situation, you wanted Alex Burnson to be with you.
That's the characterization.
I'll overrule it. That's how it was characterized by the witness.
Can you rephrase, please?
If there was going to be a serious situation, you wanted Alex Burnson to be with you, correct?
No, not saying there was going to be a serious situation. It was a serious situation because I was made aware of something that supposedly happened to my friend. So to me, it was a serious situation to check on his well-being.
And that serious situation was you thought that there had been a fight that Mr. Hines had been involved with, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so you got Alex Burnson, not Colin, to take you over to 43 Laurel Glen. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And you identified for us Alex Burnson in the videos that we just watched, right?
Yes, sir.
Alex Burnson's the guy with no shirt on who's standing over somebody and throwing a few blows, right?
Yes, sir.
How much do you think Alex Burnson, or do you know how Mr. Burnson had to drink that evening?
He does not drink.
Does not drink.
At the time, he did not drink.
And you told us that when you got there to the house at 43 Laurel Glen, you had had a couple of drinks, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you described those as being seltzers, correct?
Yes, sir.
You also told the state's attorney on your direct examination that those had been beers, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you have both that night, seltzers and beers?
No, I did not.
Which one was it, seltzer or beer?
It was seltzer.
Do you know which kind of seltzer?
I do not recall.
And you can't tell us exactly how many of those seltzers you'd had.
Not more than a few.
Not more than a few?
Yep.
What is a few?
2 to 3.
You can't recall how long you were at your brother's, correct?
No, I cannot.
But it was enough time at least to have a few seltzers.
Yes, sir.
Was anybody else drinking with you?
At my brother's house?
Yes.
Yes.
Who?
I do not recall my older brother's stepbrother's friends, their get together.
And at this time you were 18, correct?
Yes, sir.
Who supplied you with those seltzers?
I do not recall. It was a get together, so I really just grabbed them.
But you don't recall who supplied you as an underage person with those seltzers.
No, sir.
And you left your brother's house and went to Tyler's Rich's house at 43 Laurel Glen, correct?
Yes, sir.
You were driven there by Alex Burnson, correct?
Yes, sir.
And along the way, you claim you didn't have anything more to drink, correct?
No, sir.
And when you got there, you say you didn't go inside the house?
No, sir.
And when you got there, who was the first person that you saw?
I saw Ryan Hines
Where did you see him?
in the street's front yard area.
What was he doing?
He was standing there by a car, just talking.
Who was he talking to?
I do not recall exactly. I remember Griffin being out there and Tyler Rich.
And so to your recollection, when you arrived, it was just Ryan Hines, Griffin Marcinzik, and Tyler Rich that were outside?
To my knowledge, yes.
Do you recall anybody else being there who you just didn't recognize?
Yes.
And how many people do you think were there that you saw?
I do not recall exactly, but not many.
Not many people?
No.
30 people
Are you saying outside talking to Ryan?
that you saw?
That I saw outside?
Yes.
Not many people, not 30.
Not at that point.
No.
Did you see Ricky Fiola when you got there?
I do not recall.
Did you see Sal Perry when you got there?
I do not recall.
Did you see Michael Sampiri when you got there?
I do not recall.
Did you see Alex Burnson?
Yes.
Because he was with you.
Yes, sir.
Did you see Charlie Connery when you got there?
I do not recall.
Did you see Jacob Villalobos when you got there?
I do not recall.
You did see Tyler Rich.
Yes, sir.
Did you see Michael Lokovich when you got there?
No, sir. I do not recall.
But you do recall seeing all of those folks in the video later on, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you said you were there for about 20 minutes, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were you outside that whole time?
I was outside and I made my way to the cellar doors in the back and the staircase. Yes.
So for 20 minutes, you were outside and then you made your way to the cellar doors at some point.
Yes, sir.
And while you were there, you weren't having anything to drink at that point?
No, sir.
Did you see other people drinking?
I do not recall.
You say Ryan Hines was by a car?
In the front yard, there was a couple cars parked on the left side of the street if you're facing farmhouse, and then more cars parked on the right side of the street.
So cars parked on both sides of the street?
Yes, there was about not many cars on the left side towards the house. There was, I would say, maybe 3 cars, but there was more cars on the opposite side across the street.
So 3 cars on the left side by the house, even more cars on the right side
Yes, sir.
across the street.
Yes, sir.
How many cars, if you recall, were in the parking, the driveway?
I do not recall exactly.
Do you recall later that there were cars in the driveway?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall a blue truck being in the driveway?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall any other cars being in the driveway?
I do not recall.
Do you recall a basketball hoop being anywhere?
Yes, sir.
Where was that located?
Right to the left side of the mailbox in the street.
And you told us that you went to the cellar doors. Had you been to this house before?
Yes, sir.
So you knew where to go.
Yes, sir.
You were familiar with the layout of the house,
Yes, sir.
the layout of the yard,
Yes, sir.
the layout of the neighborhood itself.
Yes, sir.
That neighborhood, you would agree, is made up of a number of through streets and then a number of streets that come off of that end in cul-de-sacs, right?
Can you rephrase, please? Sorry.
Sure. There is a number of streets that are called through streets they connect one street to another, right?
Yes.
Adams is one of those streets.
Yes, sir.
And then there's a number of streets that are cul-de-sacs or they end in little circular dead ends, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's what that neighborhood is comprised of, right?
Yes, sir.
You knew that because you'd been there before.
Yes, sir.
And you were familiar enough with this house that you just walked up to the back cellar doors, right?
No, when I got there, there was individuals outside who I am friends with. So I did not walk right back up to the cellar doors. I was standing in the front having a conversation.
Okay, but you didn't feel any need to tell anybody, I'm going to go walk to the cellar doors and go downstairs now, right?
The owner of the house, Tyler Rich, was outside at the initial conversation.
And you didn't feel like you needed to tell him, Tyler, I'm going to go to the inside the house now. Is that okay?
Well, people were starting to walk back to the house. So he was aware that I was there and was aware that with people walking back to the house, I would be among those.
And that it would be okay for you to do so
Yes, sir.
because you'd been there before.
Yes, sir.
And you were familiar with the layout of the house.
Yes, sir.
And they were familiar with you. You didn't expect anybody to try and stop you when you went to those cellar doors.
No, sir.
And you told us that you went down the cellar steps, but you didn't make it to the bottom, right?
Yes, sir.
When you're standing on the cellar steps, could you see into the basement?
I do not recall.
And you don't recall seeing any drinking going on?
No, I do not recall.
You didn't see any evidence of drinking anywhere along the way between the front yard to the cellar steps, wherever you made it ultimately?
No, sir.
And then you told us that you came back because you heard yelling, and that yelling was at their back?
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, had the Honda Pilot been there before at that point?
It was previously there and drove away.
It was previously there and drove away sometime before you were there for 20 minutes?
No, the Honda Pilot, their first arrival was when I was already at the house.
When you arrived to the house,
Yes, sir.
was the Honda Pilot there?
No, sir.
You're saying that before you arrived, the Honda Pilot had already been there?
No, sir.
Okay. What do you mean that it had been there before you arrived?
I misunderstood your question. The Honda Pilot was not there prior to my being there.
So when you heard that they were back, what did that mean to you if the pilot had not been there before?
I misunderstood your question. So the Honda Pilot had driven away down the street when I was at the cellar doors. So when I heard the words "they're back," I understood that the car came back down the street and was back at the house.
You didn't see the car,
No, I did not.
and you came back into the front yard.
Yes, sir.
Who else was with you?
I do not recall exactly. There was a group of individuals walking back through the front.
Large group of individuals, right?
I do not recall exactly, but there was a few people. I was not paying attention to who was with me.
A few, 2 or 3, like with the seltzers, or more?
I do not recall exactly.
30 to 40?
Upon watching the video after, could see that there was a large group, but in the instance where when I immediately walked back to the front, I do not recall.
You don't recall the people that were in the house pouring out into the front yard?
I do not recall.
And you said that when the vehicle came back, it parked right in front of the mailbox, right?
Yes, sir.
Wasn't on the other side of the street? It
Yes,
was
sir.
right there by that mailbox.
Yes, sir.
And you said you walked out to see with Griffin Marcinzik, correct?
I do not recall saying I walked out with him.
Was Griffin Marcinzik with you?
I do not recall who exactly was with me when I walked back to the front upon hearing they're back.
Okay. You didn't tell us that you walked out with Ryan Hines?
I do not recall saying, I do not remember who I walked out from the cellar doors back to the front with.
You don't recall telling us that you walked out with Tyler Rich?
No, sir.
When you were in the front yard, you said at least Griffin Marcinzik, Ryan Hines, and Tyler Rich were out there, right?
Yes, sir.
But in fact, everyone ultimately ended up pouring out into the front yard, did they not?
I am not sure if it was everybody, but a large group eventually, there was a large group eventually on the lawn.
Right, it wasn't just a few people, was it?
No, sir.
It wasn't 2 or 3.
No, sir.
And you told us that the car stopped in the middle of the road right in front of the mailbox and that the Shelton High kids all approached the car, correct?
This is prior to the car driving away, you're asking?
Let's focus on what you've told us.
Hmm?
You said that you came back out and the car is parked there by the mailbox, right?
Once I came back out of the cellar doors after I heard yelling that they're back, yes.
Okay, that's what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
At that point, everybody poured out of the house, correct?
I do not recall.
Okay. Do you recall telling us that the Shelton High School kids all approached the car and that there was arguing back and forth?
That was prior, yes, sir.
Prior to what?
Approaching of the car was when I was still outside having a conversation prior to me ever making it to the back of the house.
When you got there initially, you
Yes,
told
sir.
us you did not see the Honda Pilot,
No, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
You were there outside for 20 minutes or so, correct?
Yes, sir.
You went down to the cellar door, correct?
No, sir. The car pulled up upon me being outside before I
you
walked.
went to the cellar door.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you agree that that's different than what you told us on direct?
I misunderstood what you said, but yes, sir.
When the car pulls up after you come back from the cellar doors, you go back into the front yard. And at that point, the car is by the mailbox.
Can you rephrase again? Sorry.
What part of it do you not understand? So I know what to rephrase.
It's argumentative.
It's not argumentative. He's asking a question. Why don't you just rephrase the question, attorney?
Let's go from the cellar doors, okay? You're at the cellar doors, you hear something, you go back to the front yard. Do you recall that?
Yes.
When you go back to the front yard, that's when you see the Honda Pilot that you've described being by the mailbox, correct?
Yes, sir.
And at that point, Shelton High School kids all approached the car and there was arguing back and forth, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you thought that there were 4 to 5 kids in that car, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you thought that the occupants of that car included Mr. correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Snyder, correct?
I learned his name after, but yes, sir.
Mr. Valley, correct?
Yes, sir.
And another person named Anthony Greco, correct?
Yes, sir.
Anthony Greco wasn't there that night, was he?
No, sir.
But you thought he was in that car.
Yes, sir.
You told that to officers.
Yes, sir.
And once these kids go over and there's arguing back and forth, as you described it, where were you at that point?
When the car first got there and what I described as the arguing, I was at the driver's side rear door.
Driver's side, rear door.
Yes, sir.
How close were you to the car?
I do not recall exactly, not far, about an arm's length.
Arm's length away, you could reach out and touch it?
I do not recall exactly, but I was close enough to have a conversation without raising my voice.
To show you what's been marked as Exhibit 30. Is that the Honda Pilot that you saw that night?
Yes, sir.
Do you see a defect in the windshield on the passenger side?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you recall that being there the first time that you saw that vehicle that evening?
I do not recall.
And you said that a glass bottle was thrown out of the car towards the house, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that glass came from the driver's side, correct?
Yes, sir.
where you were standing by the driver's side rear door an arm's length away, correct?
Yes, sir.
There was some arguing and then they sped off, you told us.
Yes, sir.
You didn't see anybody touching that vehicle?
I do not recall exactly.
You didn't see anybody rocking that vehicle?
I do not recall.
You didn't see all the Shelton High kids surrounding that vehicle?
I do not recall because I was at the driver's side. I was just talking.
So if the other kids were all surrounding that vehicle, you couldn't see that from where you were standing by the driver's side?
I was not really paying attention to everybody else.
What were you paying attention to?
I was paying attention into the car and trying to listen to the arguing and what was being said.
You were paying attention into the car and you thought you saw Anthony Greco in there.
I did not know who Anthony Greco was. That was I gained that knowledge upon after.
You gained the knowledge that Anthony Greco was in the car afterwards?
So I did not know who Anthony Greco was, but upon having a conversation with my friends after, I thought that it was Anthony Greco that was also there, but I did not have any prior knowledge who he was.
So afterwards, before you talked to the cops, you talked to some folks and you decided that Anthony Greco was in that car and that's what you told the officers.
Could you rephrase one more time? Sorry.
Afterwards, you
Yeah.
talked to some folks. You decided based upon that Anthony Greco was in the car and you told the cops that Anthony Greco was in that car, correct?
I do not recall exactly what I said with it being 3 years ago, but if that was in the statement.
And now you're telling us Anthony Greco wasn't in that car,
No, sir.
but that's what your friends told you.
I do not recall exactly, but it was conversation after.
And that's what you told the cops when you talked to them on the 15th, correct?
I do not recall exactly, but if that's in the statement, yes.
You didn't see anybody touching the vehicle.
I do not recall
You
exactly.
didn't see anybody rocking the vehicle.
I do not recall.
You didn't see anybody surrounding the vehicle.
There was individuals outside, but I do not recall any surrounding.
And you recall the vehicle being right there by that mailbox.
At the initial them pulling up, it was in the middle of the street, which I signified earlier.
And what we're talking about now, when you're standing there and there's arguing going back and forth, that vehicle is by that mailbox.
When there was arguing in the very beginning, it was in the middle of the street. The mailbox was after, when people were yelling they're back. So yes.
After this arguing was going on, they sped off, correct?
Yes, sir.
And they went down the street towards Farmhouse Lane,
Yes, sir.
and you went back towards the cellar doors.
Yes, sir.
You didn't see anybody go down towards Farmhouse Lane from the Shelton High kids, did you?
I do not recall.
You didn't hear anybody go down there towards from the Shelton High kids to go down towards Farmhouse Lane, did you?
I do not recall.
But you do recall that you went back down towards the cellar doors and hung out for a bit, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you go downstairs into the cellar this time?
I did not make it into the basement fully, no.
Where did you do this hanging out for a bit?
I was right at the cellar doors and on the stairs.
Why didn't you go down into the cellar?
I do not recall exactly.
Were there other people there by the cellar doors with you?
I do not recall, but
Were you standing there by yourself?
I do not recall.
And at some point, you said that some of the occupants of the Honda Pilot were throwing beer bottles outside, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you never saw anybody from the Shelton High kids throw anything at that Pilot, did you?
No, sir. I do not recall.
Didn't see anybody punch anybody in the Honda Pilot?
I do not recall.
Did you see anything going on in the front passenger or the front driver's side of the Honda Pilot?
I do not recall exactly.
But you do recall that you heard a loud scream from outside, and that's when you went back towards the front, right?
I heard yelling that they're back, and that's when I went back.
And you heard yelling that they're back again. This is the second time that you've heard this.
No, that was only one instance.
So now this is when you're hearing the yelling that they're back.
Yes.
Not the first time that you described to us where you had come in, you were going down to the cellar doors, and then you came back the first time.
I only made it to the cellar doors one time.
Okay. You didn't tell us before that you made it to the cellar doors, you came back. That's when we had this whole discussion about the things going on there by the front mailbox. And then after they left, you went back to the cellar door a second time?
I made it back to the cellar doors one time, and that was when the car had driven away. I walked back to the front yard once I heard they're back.
Okay. And when you got there this second time, you said you started a Snapchat video, right?
Yes, sir.
And we watched that Snapchat video, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you described a chaotic scene with a fight in the middle of the grass, right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, there were really two fights going on, right?
Yes, sir.
There was the fight that's over here with Tyler DeSilva. That's one fight, you'd agree?
Yes, sir.
And then there was a second fight that was going on with Mr. Valle, correct?
I do not recall seeing that fight by the time I made it to the front.
Did you see that fight occur in the video that you watched a few times here?
I do not recall.
You don't recall that at all?
No.
And you were standing over by this concrete square, correct?
Yes, sir.
In fact, you were moving around to some extent, were you not?
Yes, sir.
And you told us that you heard screaming, correct?
I do not recall.
You don't recall whether or not you told us that you'd heard screaming?
The only screaming that I recall hearing is that they're back.
That's all you recall hearing is they're back.
Yes.
You just watched the video, right?
Yes, sir.
And you heard somebody say, "Yes, sir," right?
Yes, sir.
Was that you?
Yes, sir.
So it wasn't just that people were screaming that you heard. You were screaming, "Yes, sir."
Yes, sir.
What did that mean, "Yes, sir"?
I do not recall exactly. It was in the heat of the moment.
Well, what were you watching when you said, "Yes, sir"?
I was watching an altercation on the grass.
You were watching Alex Burnson, shirtless, throwing blows at Tyler DeSilva while he was on the ground with his shirt pulled up over his head hockey style, right?
Upon watching the video, I saw that. Yes, sir.
So that "yes, sir" was celebratory. Would you agree?
I would not say celebratory.
You weren't answering a question, were you?
Excuse me. Rephrase, please.
Nobody had said to you, "Are you having a good time this evening, Mr. Chernowsky?" Did they?
No, sir.
You weren't answering a question, were you?
No, sir.
You were celebrating. You were saying, "Yes, sir."
I do not recall celebrating, but yes, those were my words.
Did you also hear somebody say, "Get some, nigger"?
Upon watching the video, yes, sir.
Was that you as well?
No, sir.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
How are you sure?
That is not my voice. That was another individual.
Whose voice was it?
I do not recall exactly.
Was that also just the heat of the moment?
It was not me, so I'm not too sure.
Didn't bother you though, did it?
No, it did not.
Now you told us that you heard screaming, "Out of here, just leave," but you didn't tell us about the "yes, sir," and you didn't tell us about the racial epithet until right now, right?
No, sir.
And in fact, you didn't tell officers about this video until the third time that you spoken to them, correct?
I do not recall exactly which time.
And you identified for us in State's Exhibit 61, Ricky Fiola, right?
Yes, sir.
He had a phone in his hand as well, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
And he had the flashlight on at least, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he was also live streaming this, wasn't he?
I do not recall if he was live streaming. I just recall seeing a light.
You weren't filming that night because you thought this was something that the cops should see, were you?
No, sir.
You were filming because this is something you were enjoying, wasn't it?
No, sir.
Did you say "yes, sir"?
I said no, sir.
What were you going to do with that video after you took it?
I do not recall exactly.
But you weren't going to give it to the cops, were you?
Yes, sir, I would have.
You didn't until they asked about it, right?
Yes, sir.
You described a couple other people in that video for us. You said the green shirt was Ryan Hines, correct?
Yes, sir.
White and black in front, that was Sal Perry, correct?
Yes, sir.
One person with his shirt off over top of Mr. DeSilva, that was Alex Burnson that you had brought with you.
Yes, sir.
Black shirt and red hat, Michael Sampieri.
Yes, sir.
DeSilva, you described as wearing the light blue jersey. I believe it was an Ole Miss jersey.
I do not recall saying Ole Miss, but I said a light blue jersey.
And then you described Tyler Rich as being on the ground in front of Mr. DeSilva in that.
Yes, sir.
That's what you could make out from that?
Yes, sir.
We also saw Mr. Villalobos in there, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lokovich was in there with no shirt on.
Yes, sir.
How did you know Mr. Lokovich?
We were friends.
How old was Mr. Lokovich?
I do not recall exactly.
You didn't start filming until the fight had already begun. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Did you see the fight begin?
No, sir.
You didn't.
No, sir.
Where were you when the fight began?
I was at the cellar doors.
So you didn't see somebody throw the first punch.
No, sir.
When you spoke with officers, you described Lito as wearing a dark hooded sweatshirt, correct?
I do not recall exactly.
He was not wearing a dark hooded sweatshirt that night, was he?
I do not recall.
You told the officers that you observed it from a distance, right?
I do not recall.
In fact, you didn't just observe it from a distance. You were filming the thing, right?
Yes, sir.
You were cheering it on, right?
I do not recall cheering it on, but I was yelling at one point in the video, yes.
You wouldn't describe saying "yes, sir" as cheering it on?
No, sir.
That wasn't encouraging things?
I do not recall exactly.
And where was Ryan Hines while this was going on?
I do not recall exactly where he was.
But you told the officers that you saw the defendant strike Ryan Hines in the ribs, right?
I do not recall.
But you couldn't have seen the defendant strike Ryan Hines in the ribs, right?
I do not recall exactly where they were.
Well, we saw what you saw, did we not?
Yes, sir.
Did you see the defendant strike Ryan Hines in the ribs?
No, sir.
No, you didn't, but you told the cops that, right?
I do not recall exactly saying that.
And how did you know Mr. McGrath?
We have mutual friends.
Had you ever been to parties with him before?
We have been in the same places a few times, yes.
Did you see him drinking this evening?
No, I did not.
You told officers when you spoke with them before you gave him the video that to the best of your knowledge, this entire incident was completely random, right?
Yes, sir.
But it wasn't completely random, was it?
I do not recall.
You don't recall what?
What are you referring to when you say it was not completely random?
Well, what were you referring to when you said the entire incident was completely random?
I was made aware of an incident that happened prior, but other than that, of the individuals making their way to our Shelton House party, that was random to my knowledge.
Making their way to which party?
To Tyler Rich's house.
That was completely random.
To my prior knowledge, it was random of them showing up there, yes.
To your knowledge, the defendant, Jack Snyder, and Tyler DeSilva showed up at 43 Laurel Glen Drive completely randomly.
To my knowledge, up to that point, it was completely random for them to have shown up there.
You told these officers that you saw the defendant lying on the ground after getting punched and there was a stampede. Did you not?
I do not recall.
You don't recall telling that to Officer Iannotti when you spoke to him on May 20th?
I do not recall.
Did you see the defendant lying on the ground after getting punched and then there was a stampede and Mr. Hines was pushed and landed on Mr. Valle?
I do not recall exactly seeing that.
Well, you did describe to us that it was a chaotic scene, right?
Yes, sir.
What was chaotic about it?
It was very chaotic with a fight. There was a lot of yelling and there was people outside. It was just a chaotic scene to follow.
There was only 2 of these kids from St. Joe's there, correct?
Yes, sir.
On the grass, correct?
On the grass, yes, sir.
There were at least 20 Shelton High kids there in the lawn, correct?
I do not recall exactly how many, but there was a large group of Shelton kids outside, yes.
Do you dispute that there was at least 20?
I do not recall exactly how many, but there was a larger group.
You wouldn't dispute that there was 30, would you?
I do not recall exactly how many were out there.
You wouldn't dispute that there was 40, would you?
I do not recall exactly how many people were out there.
Would you agree that the 2 St. Joe's kids were vastly outnumbered?
Of people fighting, there was not many people in the actual fight. There was a lot of bystanders around.
How many people would you say were fighting in that video that you recorded?
To the best of my knowledge, exactly, I'd say a few, not too many.
A few,
Yes, sir.
like those seltzers, 2 or 3?
Upon watching the video, I could see there was a fight in the grass and there was a punch thrown from behind from Alex Bernstein. What's that?
You didn't see anyone actually get stabbed, correct?
No, sir.
And the reason that you didn't initially share that video that you made on the night of is because you were afraid you might get in trouble, right?
I do not recall why I did not give it over.
You knew that that video showed your friends engaged in some assaultive behavior, correct?
Yes, sir.
You didn't want your friends to get in trouble, did you?
I obviously did not want them to get in trouble, but I do not recall if that was a reason I did not give it over.
Well, you say you obviously did not want them to get in trouble. What's so obvious about that?
Well, nobody ever wants their friends to get in trouble, but that would not be the reason that I would not hand the video over.
But you didn't hand the video over immediately, did you?
No, sir.
You had it on the night of the 14th, correct?
Yes, sir.
You had it on the 15th, correct?
Yes, sir.
You talked with Officer Bitsko and Officer Staples, correct?
I do not recall Officer Bitsko, who that is, but Officer Staples, yes, I know.
At the Shelton PD, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you went back again on the 20th, and that's when you talked with Officer Iannotti, correct?
I do not recall that officer's name, but I did end up going back. Yes, sir.
And that's when you gave him the video, right?
I do not recall exactly which time I gave them the video.
Did you share that video with anybody else?
No, sir, I did not.
Didn't post it on some social media?
So that night, the video was on a private story and then deleted as soon as everything calmed down.
Let's talk about that. The video was on a private story.
Yes, sir.
It just got there on its own.
No, I posted it on a private story, and that's when I put my phone back into my pocket.
You posted that video that night on your private story.
Yes, sir.
How many people had access to it?
I do not recall.
All your friends?
I do not recall exactly how many people have access to it.
Do you let all of your friends have access to your private stories?
I do not recall exactly how many. Some of my friends are in it, some are not.
When you posted it to your private stories, you didn't give it to the police, did you?
No, sir. It was posted the night of and deleted almost immediately.
Because you were afraid you might get in trouble, right?
I deleted the video upon realizing exactly, what had happened that night, but no, not about getting in trouble. Once I realized what had happened and what had occurred, and we came to the realization that obviously there was injured and he was severely wounded, the video was taken down.
Well, you knew that Jimmy was severely wounded that night, did you not?
Yes, sir.
But you posted it that night, right?
I posted it. There's a button on Snapchat where if you just click it once, it automatically posts. There's no second verification needed or anything. So upon clicking that button, it was posted to my story instantly. And then I put my phone back in my pocket.
You posted that video that night, right?
Yes, sir.
It wasn't just posted on its own.
No, sir.
You did that
Yes, sir.
rather than give that to the police.
I did not have a meeting with the police. I forgot about the video immediately when it was on my story that night upon first responders getting there and everything. And then I remembered about the video. I do not recall exactly when. It was in the next few hours to a friend of mine saying that the video was on my story.
You posted that video that night shortly after we heard you say, yes, sir, right?
Yes, sir.
And that was before you realized how seriously Mr. McGrath was injured. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
You posted that video because that was a trophy. You wanted people to see what had happened because you didn't know yet how serious it was. That's the truth, isn't it?
No, sir. I posted the video. I do not recall exactly why I posted the video, but I just posted it. I wasn't really thinking.
Did you post any other videos that night?
I do not recall. I do not believe so.
But you didn't not give it to the police because you were afraid that you might get in trouble.
I do not recall exactly why I did not give it to them.
And you don't recall if you didn't give it to the police because you didn't want any of your friends to get in trouble.
No, I do not recall exactly why I did not.
You don't recall anybody laying hands on that car that you saw there, correct?
I do not recall watching anything at
You don't recall whether or not that vehicle had that defect in the windshield when you saw it, correct?
I do not recall seeing that.
And you don't recall why you said, yes, sir. Is that what you told us?
I'm going to object based on asked and answered at this point.
Sustained.
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right.
All right, Tanner. On direct examination, when we spoke before, counsel just asked you about the phrase that you said, "they're back." Let's reset, okay? When the Honda Pilot first gets there, where are you? First gets there that night.
When the Honda Pilot first arrived, it was in the middle of the street, and I was also in the middle of the road to the side of the mailbox.
So you're saying this is states 52. It's in the middle of the street somewhere here, maybe where the yellow X is,
Yes, it's a relatively right about here.
okay?
I was on the driver's side.
So when you say that it was in front of the mailbox, you're not saying it's parked in front of the mailbox, right? So when you're saying it's in front of the mailbox, it's somewhere in front of the mailbox, but in the middle of the street.
Yes, in the middle of the street.
So when you said on direct examination and then again for on cross-examination, whether the phrase that you used there back was, did you misspeak at that moment? Was that the
So-
first time they came to the house?
No, so the first time they came to the house was when the car was in the middle of the street.
Okay.
I misunderstood what the defendant's lawyer said. When I said their back was after the car first drove away, and I made it to the back of the cellar doors upon me here.
So just so we're clear, car's in the middle of the street, you go up, you're on the driver's side, you see what you see, and then the car drives off, right?
Yes, sir.
And after the car drives off, you make your way back to the cellar doors, right?
Upon the car driving off, yes, I made my way to the back basement.
And when you made your way back to the cellar doors, how long did you hang out there?
I do not recall exactly. It was not too long.
And at some point in time, you heard their back.
Yes, sir.
And at that point in time, what did you observe about the car? Where was the car located?
Once I heard the yelling their back, I proceeded to go to the front, and the car was relatively close to the mailbox, more towards the yard this time.
I'm going to show you, see it's exhibit 62. Can you see this right here?
Yes, sir.
What does this appear to be down here on the bottom part of 62?
It appears to be a parked car.
Okay. And this up here with the lights on, what does this appear to be?
A house across the street.
This right here, this structure right here.
That appears to be the dark Honda Pilot.
Okay. So if this car, do you recall where this car down here to the bottom of 62, do you recall that was parked facing Adams Drive near the mailbox, or was it facing the other way?
I do not recall exactly.
But at some point in time, when the Honda Pilot comes back, does it come back towards Adams or going the other way?
It came back, and the car was going towards Adam, facing
And
Adams.
so this is the car, right? You're telling us this is the Honda Pilot right here, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's the defendant in front of the Honda Pilot.
Yes, sir.
It's safe to say that he's between a parked car on the side of the road and this car being in the middle of the road?
Yes, sir.
So is it at that moment when you heard, well, shortly before that moment, when you heard their back? Is that when you heard their back?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when we're referring to their back, you're referring to this moment in time just before the fight starts.
When I heard their back, I was already at the cellar doors, and that was right prior to me walking out and observing a fight on the front lawn.
Counsel asked you why you videoed that fight that night. I mean, do you do a lot of videoing on Snapchat?
Yes, sir.
Why do you do that?
I'm not too sure why.
I mean, do you randomly video things?
Yes, sir. Me and my friends always take videos like when we're doing anything really.
Is that the whole purpose of Snapchat? What's the purpose of Snapchat? Why do you have it?
Snapchat is send pictures and or videos to friends, or you could create a story, which I explained before.
And is it common for you and your friends to just whip your phone out and start videoing things or taking pictures?
Yes, sir.
And is it common for you and your friends on Snapchat? Withdrawn. Do you use any other social media apps?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is it common for you and your friends to use social media apps such as Snapchat to video things and post them to your Snapchat account?
Yes, sir.
Have you done that before?
Yes, sir.
And when you've done that before, did you do it just kind of not thinking about it? Just you video something and you just post it for the sake of posting it?
Yes, sir.
And why do you do that?
Really just catch memories, I would say. Yeah, that's really about it.
So when you videoed this fight on May 14th of 2022, was it kind of one of those impulsive things that you did?
Yes.
And when you posted it, is that one of those impulsive things when you posted? I guess you said you hit a button or something and it posted right away?
Yeah, I do not recall exactly, but there is a button on the main screen where if you hit it, it immediately will post.
Is that something that you've done in the past?
Yes, sir.
Is that something that you've done in the past when you kind of can do it without looking at the screen? Or do you have to kind of watch what you're doing and then hit something?
You have to kind of look at it, but if you click add to story, it will add to your story.
So when you posted this video that we watched today, is that something that as soon as the video ended, you kind of posted it and then kind of realized what had happened?
Yes, sir.
Now, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, any additional costs?
I just have some brief questions. for
All
you.
right,
Just want to make sure we've got this correct now. First time the car arrives, you're standing by the rear passenger side, correct?
The first time that the car arrived in the middle of the street, I was at the rear driver's side.
Rear driver's side.
Yep.
Thank you for correcting me. You're standing at the rear driver's side. You didn't see anybody else surrounding the car.
I do not recall exactly.
You
who
don't
was out
recall
there.
anybody touching the car, even though you were an arm's length away.
Yeah, I do not recall
You
exactly.
don't recall anybody rocking the car.
I do not recall.
You don't recall anybody damaging that car in any way.
I do not recall.
Car drives off. You go back to the cellar doors for some time. If you describe that as being maybe 20, 25 minutes, right?
I do not recall exactly how long. It was a little bit of time.
When the car drove off, it headed down towards Farmhouse Lane, right?
Yes, sir.
You stayed outside by the back cellar doors.
Yes, sir. I was
You
right
didn't
on the stairs. of
You
the
didn't
doors.
see any Shelton High kids go down towards Farmhouse Lane.
I do not recall seeing anybody.
You don't recall hearing anybody go down towards Farmhouse Lane from Shelton High.
No, sir. Not
You don't recall seeing Tyler Rich go down there.
No, sir.
You don't recall seeing Ricky Fiola go down there.
No, sir.
Nobody, right?
Yes, sir.
Second time you hear they're back, right?
Yes, sir.
This time the car is relatively close to the mailbox with another car in front of it, correct?
As seen in the picture, the car is in the middle of the street with a parked car parallel to it. Yes.
You were asked a whole bunch of questions on redirect about randomly videoing things. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
This wasn't randomly videoing something, was it?
I do not recall exactly. Upon seeing lights, once I made my way to the front yard, there was lights and what appeared to be, I thought, other people were recording. Therefore, I started a recording.
It wasn't random, right?
I saw other lights, so I started recording upon coming into the front yard.
You saw lights and that made you decide you needed to record something?
I thought that other people were recording.
You told us that you record things to catch memories, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what you just told the state's attorney, to catch memories, right?
Yes, sir.
This was a memory that you wanted to catch, wasn't it?
No, sir.
This wasn't a memory that you wanted to catch?
Upon walking out into the grass and seeing other lights, I thought other people were recording. And in this day and age, kind of just a first instinct.
You recorded this because you wanted to catch this memory. It's only after the fact, when you figured out what had occurred, that you decided, maybe this isn't a memory I want to keep anymore. That's the truth, isn't it?
I do not recall exactly why I started this recording. It was a spur of the moment, and I just started recording.
It wasn't to catch the memory of Shelton High kids getting the better of the two St. Joe's kids.
No, sir.
Did you say yes, sir?
I said no, sir.
Nothing.
anything further?
Nothing
All
further.
right, you're all set. Okay, exit the witness stand. Please watch your step as you exit, okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to adjourn for the day. I want to remind the jury before we do that you must abide by your rules of juror conduct. I also described to your instructions at the beginning of the trial. So those instructions that I gave to you at the beginning of the trial apply. You must abide by those rules. So tomorrow is a court holiday. We will not be be in session tomorrow. That's Thursday. Friday, we will also not be in session for purposes of this trial. All right. So for the purposes of the jurors, you will not need to be here Thursday or Friday of this week. We will resume evidence on Monday. Again, I cannot stress how important it is that you abide by your obligations. You're going to be going home to curious people. You're going to have 4 days where you are going to have access to social media and media, newspapers, local postings, and conversation. Please do your best to avoid anything about this trial. Please do not discuss anything about this trial or any issues arising out of it with anyone. We'll see you back on Monday. Again, I also want to stress, do not visit any of the locations that have been discussed. Do not conduct any independent research or investigation into any of the issues arising out of this trial. Your obligation is to decide this case at the end of the trial based solely on the evidence presented here in this courtroom. I expect that you take your oath seriously. I appreciate the attention that you continue to give this trial. Enjoy your weekend. Have a safe weekend, and we'll see you back Monday, same time. Thank you. Court stands adjourned.
All rise. Court is adjourned.